the biggest problem that is there with Lead Squared is even today, I guess their heaviest concentration is in India. Now, there's nothing against any platform that is going to be regionally concentrated, but when you have concentration in a very specific country, sometimes it's hard to comment whether they are going to be as successful as the other mainstream CRM systems.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And in this series, we review vendor or the solutions. And for today, we have a very unique vendor from the CRM category. It's LeadSquared. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with quick intros. If you still don't know me, I'm Sam Gupta, your host, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the analyst and advisory firm. On that note, Shrestha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. My name is Shrestha Das, and I'm working as a research industry analyst at Elevate IQ. And I'm super excited to be here today.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And today, Andy is not going to be here, so we are going to miss him. If you're in the audience joining for the first time, we always like to have this three-way conversation. So if you have any sort of experiences, stories related to this product, we would love to hear them. Now, Shrestha, for your benefit, I know that we have done a lot of different CRM reviews. So Lead Squared is a very interesting CRM, and I would say they are relatively newer, even though they have very high valuation as well. I think we always joke about this, that in the CRM industry, in the CRM space, every single company and the vendor is going to have at least $1 billion valuation. And in their case as well, they have extremely high valuation, even though they might not be as well known, I would say. And this is probably one of the best products or the startups that are coming from India. So that is also very unique about them. In the CRM industry, we have Zoho and then Lead Squared. Overall, from the product perspective, they are pretty good. Now, their target market is very similar to, I would say, if I remember correctly, I think that was the Infusionsoft or Keep. Now they are calling themselves as Keep. So these two are probably going to have very similar strategy in terms of the industries that they are going after. And these are the industries that are also going to be common with CRMs, such as your Pega systems, or ServiceNow is now targeting CRM as well. So they are going after these industries because the traditional CRMs, or I should not word I should not use word traditional probably. The mainstream CRM, let's use the word mainstream probably. That's not as bad, I guess. And mainstream CRMs, if you look at Salesforce, HubSpot, they are designed for very sales-centric organizations. And when you look at these industries, they have very ad hoc, fluid processes, and that's why they are very unique in terms of the way they work. Now, if you want to do this development on top of Salesforce, Microsoft, then you are looking at very long development cycle, and sometimes that could be unpredictable whether you are going to be successful with that or not. So traditionally, I guess either Salesforce or Microsoft, they probably accommodated these processes or some of the very unique CRMs that were prevalent in these industries. We noticed when we were reviewing HEO, they are targeting these industries as well because they argued that, you know what, in these industries, you are going to require extremely fluid data model. So this is a similar sentiment across the board that these industries need some sort of change or different platform compared to your Salesforces of the world, Microsoft Dynamics 365 of the world, HubSpot, Pipedrive. Those are probably going to be in very similar bucket. Even Zoho, I guess, is probably going to be very similar bucket as well, just because of their constraining data model. Now, if you look at Lead Squared is going to have very similar strategy. The only difference is that they are providing a lot of pre-baked functionality for these industries. So even if you go for systems such as your Pegasystems and ServiceNow, and some people argue that, you know what, Pegasystems or ServiceNow, they are not necessarily CRM systems, even though they are going to have substantial market share, because when you look at them, they will come across as more of the development platform, BPM solution, rule engine. They might have some CRM processes built on top of that, but it's very hard to relate for somebody who is looking for very standard CRM, which is going to have your leads, accounts, opportunities, etc. Those are the most common CRMs. But in these industries, you are going to have very specific customer journeys. You are going to have very specific customer interactions and very unique business objects. And it's very hard to accommodate these unique business objects in the constraining models of those 4 or 5 or the mainstream CRM systems. So that's where these guys' play is. They also have a little bit of, I would say, price play. And the reason why they have price play is because if you go for HubSpot, Pipedrive, 90% of the private equity owned CRM systems, they are going to have very crafty pricing model. It increases substantially, and sometimes customers don't like that. So if you look at Active Campaign, Sugar CRM has very similar pitch, at least for their marketing campaigns. I think they are changing the pricing right now, so there might be changes with their pricing as well. But overall, the whole pricing pitch was very common with your Active Campaign, as well as Sugar CRM. There might be some more. The CRM vendors that are competing with the likes of HubSpot, and HubSpot, the price increases substantially overall when you try to use it, when you are going to increase number of emails, number of contacts, and that's a shocker for a lot of businesses, just because they start with free and then all of a sudden you are probably paying $100,000 a year, which could be substantial for a lot of businesses. So that's where I guess these guys are going to have very similar price play as well. And the other things that they are really cheap and good is they are going to have a lot more pre-built industry capabilities as well as reports. So even though your HubSpot and Salesforce, they are going to provide very deep reporting module, but when you have to build these specific reports, you are still looking for substantial consulting help, and that could add up. So that's where the major challenge is. So in these cases, you are going to have these reports built. Some people like it, some people don't. The people who like it because you don't have to pay as much. Some people don't like it because then you get into the proprietary knowledge, and sometimes those reports might not be as fluid. So again, you are going to get mixed feelings in terms of what people prefer. The more industry boilerplate you are going to accommodate in any platform, it becomes very hard in general. That's the sentiment that we get across the system categories. So, and these guys are full suite CRM as well. They have been installed in with very large logos, especially in verticals such as your education, healthcare, finance, banks, etc. And those are the industries. Yes, Salesforce targets, but they are not as deep. And the only reason why Salesforce was very successful in those verticals is Salesforce is probably one of the most customizable CRMs out there, maybe Microsoft as well. But even Microsoft data model is very finicky as well. It sort of has the tight correlation with the product, etc. And sometimes companies don't necessarily like that. So again, you don't have very many options in these industries, but the newer CRM platforms are doing better overall in these industries. Even Zoho is doing better, but their data model is going to be as constraining as your Salesforce. I don't see any or much difference between Zoho and Salesforce. So overall, from the competition perspective, I think we have discussed a lot of these. Then I think the main competition is going to be with Pegasystems, Creatio, ServiceNow. The reason why they are able to get into these CRM spaces is because their model is fluid. and they are able to accommodate a lot more ad hoc processes. But then you would require consulting help, substantial consulting help. Sometimes that could be difficult for the smaller organizations if they don't necessarily have the IT maturity. From the marketing automation perspective, Active Campaign is probably going to be the biggest competitor here. They also have the price play, but again, they have changed their pricing as well. So everybody's changing their pricing now. So I don't know how relevant pricing play is going to be. Right now, you are able to enjoy pricing play with your lead squared, but that might change once you get slightly savvier investors involved. So right now you can enjoy that, but that's probably going to change. And again, that's all because of depending upon which investors are investing in the platform and they take that strategy. Some names that you might not be familiar with, but they are probably going to be compared with these ones. And the reason for that is if you go to not-for-profit education in these industries, you are going to find very specific CRM systems, and you are most likely going to compare LeadSquared with these ones as opposed to the mainstream ones, just because they are going to have a lot more not-for-profit education centric capabilities. So the CRMs that you are looking at, the Anthology Reach, Campus Nexus is very common platform. Again, they go very deep into the whole student information management, which is the SIM category, which is very deep as well. So they have a lot more operational capabilities in their platform. They're going to have a little bit of CRM play, but not as much. Then you are looking at Illusion CRM, Element 451, Schoolment, Blackboard CRM, Virtuous. And again, these some people might argue that they are probably ERP systems, but they barely have any sort of ERP functionality. They might do a little bit of accounting, etc., but they are not necessarily ERP. So in the not-for-profit as well as education space, you are going to have CRM that are thicker, but they are not necessarily ERP. So I'll let you define, how you categorize that, but the CRMs are going to be much thicker in this space. So you have Virtuous, you have Kindful, Bloomerang, and then Bonterra, Neon CRM. So these are some of the ones that you might come across, or you might want to include if you are evaluating this for not-for-profit or education. So I think we have already touched on the industries that you are going to come across most commonly. That's where they are majorly installed. That is going to be your education, healthcare, banks, insurance, real estate, travel, and marketplace. And marketplace is a very unique vertical as well. And I think ATO was trying to argue that as well, that for marketplace, you require very unique customer personas as well as customer journeys. So they are trying to target that. But with LeadSquared, I would say you are going to have a lot more capabilities pre-baked, pre-built. So that's going to be a real difference between ATO as well as LeadSquared. Okay, so I think this is probably going to be the most fair comparison, in terms of which ones you might be looking at. So let's say if you're including LeadSquared for education, not for profit, then these are probably going to be the closest in terms of their size and the market segment focus. So I would say, Salesforce, most companies are probably going to look at that because again, Salesforce data model is very customizable. It does have very deep penetration into the majority of the industries, but then you are looking at very expensive customization, and that's where you might save some money with LeadSquared as well. Again, the problem with Salesforce is that it does get expensive with their licensing, with the kind of limits that you are going to have with the licensing tiers. At least as of today, LeadSquared is likely to be slightly friendlier with their tiers and the licensing model. So again, you might save some money there. Then the biggest problem that is there with LeadSquared is even today, I guess their heaviest concentration is in India. Now, there's nothing against any platform that is going to be regionally concentrated, but when you have concentration in a very specific country, sometimes it's hard to comment whether they are going to be as successful as the other mainstream CRM systems. And generally, the trend that we see with this is the maturity of the product generally is not there when you see any products coming from, let's say, India or Middle East. or Israel. Now Israel is producing much better products in general. So now it's a very different community. Now we are seeing that trend from India as well. So it might change a little bit. They are getting the real maturity in terms of the product development. But still, if they are going to be concentrated in one particular geography, sometimes it's just hard to trust how good they are going to be, and if they are going to be as developed product, as developed community, as developed brand as some of the other systems. What we generally like to see is we like to see a little bit of spread across the geographies. So let's say they started in India, but they did well in North America as well, maybe some Europe, then that's a validation for us that no, this is a real platform. But again, based on their valuation, and that's $1 billion, we are fairly excited about this one that no, they are definitely going to be a mainstream player now. And that's why we have started tracking them, ranking them, that no, this is a real deal here. So that's our a little bit of concern with LeadSquared. So I'm not going to get into each of these platforms right now. If you are interested, we have reviewed pretty much everything from here: Salesforce, ServiceNow, Pegasystems. So you might want to check the reviews. They are available on YouTube. You can find by searching for Elevate IQ Salesforce, Elevate IQ ServiceNow review, or something like that. Sometimes it could be harder to find these reviews on our YouTube channel because we have done a lot. If you're struggling to find, and if you're looking for that, you can always reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to help you with that. Creatio is going to be on our radar. We are going to be reviewing them maybe in next couple of weeks. So you might not find Creatio right now, but overall, in comparison, I guess ServiceNow, Pegasystems, I would probably put them in very similar bucket. They are going to be a lot more customizable. They are going to have a lot more workflow collaboration piece, a lot boilerplate, I would say, from the app development perspective, and that you are not going to find with the other platforms. Creatio would have very similar positioning as well, and that's why we are bucketing them under the same bucket. With LeadSquared, you are getting very pre-baked functionality that you will be developing on top of ServiceNow, Creatio, and Pegasystems. It might be easier on them because they are slightly more low-code, no-code platform. With Salesforce, you are looking at real developers. So that's a real difference between those three. I would put in the same bucket, Salesforce in a different bucket, and LeadSquared in the bucket with Salesforce, because they have a lot more capabilities available, but it's going to be slightly more industry specific. So I don't know if I'm making sense. Shrastha, if you have any comment, I can take those, or anybody in the audience. I'll keep going. No? Okay, so I'm not hearing. So, okay, so some stories here. And if this is your first review, you have never checked any of our reviews, just to give you some taste about how we collect this data. So this is all coming from public sources. We go back in time and look at every single story or the PR stories that they have done. We are looking at product alignment in terms of their marketing messaging. We are looking at their technical pages. We are looking at their any sort of investor documentation that they have produced, and we are trying to find the consistency across that. And then we are also looking at any of the review platforms, whether Reddit or anything that is published in public. We generally dig into that and try to get as much as possible for us to be able to compile this story. So here, this is again going back to the history, and they are not very old, I would say. So the only stories that we could find, and they are not very present, I would say, in the PR community. So the first story came out in 2020, and they are saying sales automation SaaS platform LeadSquared. So they are branding themselves as sales automation SaaS platform. So they were not calling themselves as CRM at that point of time. I don't know if they started as more of the sales automation. That's likely. But I think now they are probably full suite platform, which has achieved 100% revenue growth every year. Announced today $32 million in Series B funding. And again, I think that amount is very low compared to the other players that we have in the market, but the executive team is fairly sound. So some executives are coming from App Dynamics, which is again, mind-blowingly successful, exit, I guess. So obviously they have some credit there. So that's why we are really excited about this one as well, to be completely honest. And this is another story that they have, and they are saying served more than 1,000 customers globally. Even though they are saying globally, I would say the majority of their customers are going to be concentrated in India. In India, they do have very large logos, which is a big accomplishment overall. based on their size and age. They have done a lot. So here, some more comments here. They are saying includes edtech, higher education. That's where we have seen their majority of logos, and some of the logos that we have seen are phenomenal. They are really big. So, which is mind blowing that they are able to win there. Obviously, they have something unique. That's why they are able to win in those. And then you have financial services, and we can confirm that there is a real problem in these spaces, and they should be included in the evaluation if you are performing in these industries. Financial services, tech marketplaces, these are very unique industries. Again, if you look at the sort of the problem statement from the majority of the vendors, ATO has very similar pitch. Pegasus and ServiceNow, they have very similar pitch as well, and that's why they are targeting these industries. So now they have some name drops here in terms of the logos. So you have Byju's, and I don't know if they are in business anymore. They were having some real financial difficulty. So I don't know. I mean, that was a crazy story. So it's one of the best edtech platform, I guess, from India as well. And they have used this. Obviously, startups, big startups coming from India, they are going to have relationships, energies. So it's very common that they will be using this platform. But again, if you look at the logos, the majority of them are probably going to be from India. Echo, I'm not too sure where they are located. Amity University is from India as well, and any university, if they are able to handle the workload of that, that's a big deal. Okay, OLX, not too sure about that. Dunzo, Practo, not too sure. Frubana, I don't know what that is. Maybe a marketplace. I don't know. I don't know, Stresta, if you're going to have any background on any of these companies.
Dunzo is basically an app that helps you, um, deliver objects, parcel from one place to another. And
Okay,
Practo is basically where you can find information about all doctors and hospitals.
I
And
see. And they are primarily in India, I believe, right? Or in
yeah, yeah,
India?
yeah.
Okay, yeah. So these are all, the way I'm analyzing this as, I think these are all very marketplace centric business models.
Mhm.
Dunzo is going to be marketplace as well, even though they could fall under a little bit of logistics, but the sound of it is saying that they are almost like Uber.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, again, and that's why they are able to do a lot of business in India with these cool startups, which obviously are going to have very unique CRM needs. And again, even ATO is trying to attack the same problem, and that's a validation that yes, there is a problem. Because a lot of vendors are taking the same problem. Okay, so this is, I believe, some more comments from 2020 itself. So they are saying a lot of names there. Uh, they started B2B marketing and lead generation company Market Expander. 2 years later, in 2013, they rolled out LeadSquared. So they have been in the market. I mean, they have some background in building CRM-like platforms, I would say. So they have been doing this for a while. And that's probably the reason why they are relatively successful in a very short time, even though they have been in the market for. So they're saying from marketing, call center, inside sales, field sales, feet on street teams, and that's a very unique term. We don't hear that a lot unless you are looking at very retail centric, or maybe that's a very developing country term. Maybe now that is Uber centric term, because you are going to have a lot more feet on the street. So now you have created sort of a POS channel for that. So obviously, this is all new business models that are popping up, and now you have to accommodate for that. For example, the whole space related to creator influencers, their marketing, their workflows is very unique as well, and these guys have some flavors related to that as well. So the whole idea of feet on the street, I don't know how common that is going to be in North America. Maybe a bicycle on the street I have seen, but not necessarily feet on the street. So maybe it's common in India, and that's why they had to develop capabilities for that. Verifications, collections, not necessarily CRM, but they are accommodating great. Sometimes some industries may have that, but it's really not the CRM workflow. Sometimes they might be doing this more from the customer experience perspective, just because this would fall under that, the whole customer portal, vendor portal, dealer portal, and in that you might need to do that. But again, depending upon how you look at CX, sometimes there could be problems with your ERP workflow, because you are sort of sharing the data, you are sharing the master data between two different systems. So how you are going to design the architecture is going to be a question. But it's very interesting that they are able to accommodate all of that, and that's why they are fairly unique, I would say. We have not seen these capabilities with the other CRMs so far. But again, it's very hard to comment whether these would belong to a CRM category or not, unless we see a trend across the platforms, then we can confirm that okay, maybe industry is moving in that direction, and they are not trying to over engineer something that is probably going to fire back. Vendor onboarding is very debatable topic. I don't know whether you should have your vendors inside CRM. Sometimes that is needed from the CX perspective, but then you are creating the whole P2P category there. So generally, you have SRM like software, you have P2P like software. So you are going to have a little fun, I would say, dealing with your procurement teams, because they are not going to appreciate if you're going to keep all of this inside CRM, and you are not going to appreciate when you have to share your CRM data with your procurement team. So there's going to be a little political battle there. So you need to figure out, okay, where your vendors are going to be stored. We have heard from a lot of customers that they like to store this inside CRM, but that could be political. So this is the comment, and they are saying the funding values LeadSquared at $1 billion, making it India's 103rd platform to join the unicorn club. So they are already unicorn, which is a big deal. And in the sort of the enterprise architecture space, the whole ERP, CRM, supply chain space, I don't think there are many startups coming from India. So Zoho and LeadSquared are probably two that we have seen. Others might be maybe marketplaces, etc. They don't necessarily fall under the whole enterprise software category. So there are very few and far in between right now from India. But overall, the product maturity is there now, based on what we have seen. And that's why we are getting a lot of traction from mainstream investors as well. So here in 2022, they are saying they have raised $153 million in Series C funding round that valued it at $1 billion post money. Again, it's a big deal. Okay, so I don't have anything else on this. I'll keep moving. Okay, if you don't have any other comments, I'll keep going here. So these details are coming from their competitor pages. These are their claims, and we are simply validating how true they are. So here they have compared this with HubSpot. So some claims are true. HubSpot gets very pricey in general, and sometimes there are going to be shocks around that pricing. So that claim is right. And the price play is going to be very similar to ActiveCampaign. But again, once their investors are going to change, there is a possibility that their pricing might be changed as well. The driver here is not necessarily that they are more fair than HubSpot. The driver here is who is investing the money. And most likely, when seasoned investors get involved with any platform, they generally like to change the pricing strategy. And this is one of the forces that we see across the board. So here they are saying inbound call lead capture. They are saying that, you know what, LeadSquared has it, HubSpot does not have, or limited. I don't know how you define that, but I would say HubSpot has those capabilities as well. There could be layers to it in terms of how they are defining it, but I don't see much of a difference between these two based on the data that we have so far. Then they have the event lead capture. HubSpot is not necessarily strong with event lead capture. I don't know how strong these are going to be. And this is very unique capability that you are going to require, especially if you are going to be in the not-for-profit education space. And that's why when we look at CRM such as your Marketo, even Microsoft has very strong event capabilities. And sometimes those event capabilities could be as deep as managing the entire workflow. And we have seen that even the likes of your Monday.com, Airtable, as well as Smartsheet are actually trying to get into this game as well. Because again, the workflow is going to be very complex. And sometimes this workflow is also of media companies. And these media companies might be running these events, they might be selling tickets, they might be doing concerts. And again, that workflow gets very tricky, very complex. Traditionally, that was managed on a spreadsheets. I don't know how thick these guys are going to be because they are not necessarily targeting media, but even for education and for not for profit. They will require substantial event capabilities. HubSpot is not necessarily deep there, so if they have more, that's a big deal. They're saying CMS integration. These guys are going to play with WordPress, and HubSpot is going to have their own native CMS. Now, my problem with this is the logos that they are targeting are obviously very big. Even HubSpot, that if you look at their targeting strategy, they don't necessarily target such large logos, even though they might be deployed there, but mainly from the marketing automation perspective, not as a core CRM. So even HubSpot does not like to go there, even though they have native CMS. For the most part, these CMSs are probably not going to be a fit when you are looking at the workloads like, Amity University, which is going to be very, very, very heavy in terms of traffic. So you might want to go for slightly more enterprise-centric CMS, but they are saying that they get installed alongside WordPress. And WordPress gets very tricky to manage when you are looking at very complex sites. Even for us, it's very hard right now. So that's a little tricky there. I would say, you probably want to look at, slightly more enterprise-centric CMSs there. But they are claiming that they don't have native CMS is their claim, which is true. Okay. Now, if you look at their competitor pages, so one comment I have here is they have only 3 competitors, and it's always very interesting to see why companies have included their competitors. So it's very likely that they are coming across these competitors very often. I can see Salesforce being a really good competitor for these guys. HubSpot, not too sure. HubSpot is not going to work for these spaces because of the limitations in their data model. They might be okay from the marketing automation perspective, but when you look at the fluidity of their data model, the kind of industries that these guys are trying to target, HubSpot may not be the best fit. So, I mean, these guys obviously are coming across them because those two names are always going to be there in every single deal. That's why they may have included those two, but as such, HubSpot is not necessarily a fit. It should not be compared, I would say, with LeadSquared. If you are including both of them, there's something wrong. You are missing something. So pay attention to that. That's probably a red flag. Now, Infusionsoft is very interesting as well. Okay, and the reason why it is interesting is because Infusionsoft, when we looked at their review, they are targeting businesses like coaches versus LeadSquared logos, which are almost like $1 billion business. There is a massive difference between these two, even though they might be targeting the same industry. So that's where we feel that it's probably not a fair comparison. If you are including Infusionsoft and LeadSquared in the same opportunity, that means something is off. Either you should have LeadSquared or Infusionsoft. So Infusionsoft should not be compared with LeadSquared. In the smaller spaces, Infusionsoft or Keep is going to be better fit. In the larger spaces where we have seen the trend with LeadSquared, because their product is going to be much thicker, much bloated, and then if you are going to buy that from the adoption perspective, you might have challenge. That's why we feel that stay in your market segments. Just too much of a stress. I mean, if you are going from startup to small, medium to large, that's probably okay. But going from one person shop to $1 billion organization is a massive story. So here they are saying this is the website tracking, and they are claiming that LeadSquared has and HubSpot does not have. That's very interesting. I think what HubSpot is going to argue that this is probably what they are known for. they are really good at any website tracking because they are going to have the native CMS. It might be right that it might be only available in the higher price plans. That might be a true claim. But again, I don't know how good LeadSquared is going to be. Even though they are using WordPress as CMS, I think it's likely that they might be able to accomplish all of that. I don't see any issues there. But again, I think they are going to be fairly even, I would say, in terms of the capabilities. Price is the only factor, or the tier is the only factor there that they are trying to point out, which might be a fair assessment. Some more comments here. Then they are saying email limit. Again, email limit is big. That is the right statement there. HubSpot does have substantial limitations, and that's how they get very expensive. So be very, very, very careful in evaluating HubSpot contracts. They are designed to be crafty. You will have price shocks later on. So this is the right claim. please pay attention to number of contexts, the kind of objects. Even Zoho has very crafty limits baked as part of their pricing model as well. So pay very close attention to that. Then they are talking about engagement scoring, and I don't know what engagement scoring really is, to be completely honest. I mean, everybody's going to claim that they have some sort of lead scoring play, so I don't see much of a difference, and I don't know how useful that is going to be. So they are saying that they have, but the other people don't have. Okay. So I'm not going to comment a lot on that, but that's probably not a meaningful comparison. Okay, I'll keep going here. So here we have some more comments related to HubSpot. So we are still continuing with the same review, and some more commentary here. So here the comments are saying, in HubSpot, you do not get workflow-based drip campaigns. LeadSquared offers a basic version of this feature. You can also engage your leads through SMS or on mobile. Now, overall, I guess the SMS capabilities are slightly newer for most CRM vendors. Traditionally, they did not include that. I don't know which one was the first, whether it was Pipedrive or HubSpot, but they are trying to develop their SMS capabilities. They are not as strong as of today. So I would say the majority of the vendors are probably going to have very similar SMS capabilities. Now, if LeadSquared has those capabilities baked, then it's a different case. Then they might have a little edge there. But for the most part, when you look at the workflow-based drip campaigns, I don't think HubSpot is going to agree with that comment. HubSpot is sort of known for their workflows, and their workflows are one of the strongest. In fact, I mean, you can shove in the custom code, even though there are going to be limitations with that as well. But you are going to have more limitations with the other platforms. So I don't know how true that comment is. Now, they are saying very basic reporting features available in HubSpot. That's true, especially if you're looking for very specific industry-centric reports. HubSpot is not going to have that. You have to build those unless you are using some sort of add-ons, or IP from a reseller. Then it's a different case. But out of the box, HubSpot is not going to have all the reports that are going to be available with LeadSquared. They are saying all reporting features is still charged extra in HubSpot. And from the HubSpot perspective, I would say the way their pricing model is designed, they might have some implications on their operational layer, at least as of today. Okay, so sometimes that could be a factor why they are saying that, you might have to pay more. So the way their operational layer is designed is they are, anytime you're going to have any sort of custom coded actions, that's where you would require that, operational layer. That's where they're going to have dependency into those. So if you're building any sort of complex reports, you might not be able to do that. And then HubSpot is going to say, you know what, now you have the price increase. So that's where you are going to notice a little bit, I guess, that could be a factor that they might be talking about here. So yes, there is extra charge, but it's not necessarily reporting features. I would say it's the dependency on those features, some additional technical features that you are going to require. So partially right, I would say. Now they are saying HubSpot may require intensive learning, and LeadSquared is comparatively easier to learn. Now that claim might not be as true, and the reason for that is because HubSpot is going to be as layered, because again, it is installed with very large logos as well, and LeadSquared is targeting very large logos too. So for the most part, they should have the same layers, unless LeadSquared is a very truncated data model, which is positioned for smaller logos, then there is a possibility. But for the most part, if anything, the kind of logos that they are able to target and they are targeting, LeadSquared would be harder to learn. Now, that could be a debatable topic. Some people might find, depending upon their familiarity and taste. But for the most part, in my mind, when you look at the data model, the process model, if they're really targeting the enterprise logos, then it has to be harder to learn than HubSpot, because HubSpot just does not have those many objects built. So that would be our assessment on this. If you guys don't have any comments, I can take those, or I can keep going here. Okay, so this is with Infusionsoft, which is Keep now, Keep versus LeadSquared. And so they are saying it allows the user to automatically check in when he starts the day, and this is the quote that we got from these pages. So they have this view, the map view, and we were wondering, okay, how is this map view going to be used? Because we haven't never seen that before. So again, this looks like as if they are getting into the whole field services play. And I think our assessment with Keep was that they were getting into the field service play as well. And a lot of field service CRM, that's a completely different category. You are going to find companies such as your service titans of the world, service powers of the world. They are attacking in that, and they could be perceived as CRM as well. So that's why these guys are including these capabilities, but they are going to have a lot more operational workflows that these guys are not going to have. So again, so we were wondering, okay, where could you use this? So we have seen some use cases. For example, let's say if you look at healthcare, in healthcare, you are probably going to require this. And these guys have very unique capabilities for healthcare workers and the CRMs, as well as for some of the very complex retail channels as well. That's where you are probably going to need this, especially when you look at those use cases where you have feet on the street. I guess that's the term that they were using, as well as let's say if you are using this for Uber-like company. Now Uber has their own technology. Now if there are going to be any smaller companies and they cannot necessarily afford to have that Uber experience, so these guys are probably able to provide that. Maybe closer. Obviously, it's not going to be as good as Uber, but those could be some use cases where this could be useful. Okay, so I don't have anything else here that I want to hit on, so I'll keep going. Now, here, if you look at their journeys, they are able to do certain things that would be extremely challenging with the likes of HubSpot and to some extent Salesforce as well. Even though Salesforce is very highly customizable, but they have limits as well. Zoho. So, for example, the challenges that you are going to get into, and some of these are payment workflows. Now, if you ask any educational institutes, they are probably going to ask you to include these payment workflows inside your CRM, even though that could be perceived as more of the ERP functionality. But from the customer interaction perspective, from the customer journey perspective, this is almost like a commerce, but different kind of commerce, because it's not a pure play commerce that you are going to see in the retail centric industries. So that's where you have the payment flow. And that's why if you look at HubSpot, they have also introduced the payment workflow right now. I mean, they are that was their recent story, if I remember, that they are including that. So they are getting into the whole payment game, but they are getting into payment game because of their SaaS customers. They are trying to bring the whole subscription, business model as part of that. So that's very interesting as well. So these guys are able to do that, and maybe now HubSpot needs to do this because these CRMs are sort of targeting their market. So obviously, it's very interesting where the industry is going. Now, you are going to have things such as your online exam. Now, online exam could be a very thick workflow. The number of steps that you are going to have, the kind of approvals that you are going to have, the kind of personas that are going to be interacting with your journeys. In 90% of the cases, the data model that you have from the traditional CRM perspective, they are not enough to be able to accommodate these workflows. But somehow these guys are claiming that they are able to do that, and that's where I see massive edge for LeadSquared if they are really able to do that. We could not see that in their data model. We did not see if something like this is already built. So I don't know at this point of time how they are able to manage, but as such, it's not there in their visible in their documentation. But again, if they are able to pull this off, that's a big deal, guys. And this is where systems such as your Pega systems or ServiceNow are doing much better, because these workflows are going to be highly customizable, and sometimes it's very hard to commit to these workflows because they are ever changing. They are not going to be as formalized, as standardized that you are going to find in the traditional manufacturing centric industries or the retail centric. So that's where the real challenge is, and that's why these CRMs or industries are very unique in general. Okay, so some of the integrations that you are going to find in the education space. Now, if you go to HubSpot Salesforce, in 90% of the cases, you are probably going to struggle with these integrations. Now, geo-specific integrations could be different as well. For example, you have student information management systems such as your Diamond. Now, Diamond is the name that most people might not be relating with. They might recognize Anthology. Gravity Forms is very common. And then you have some of the school directories as well. So now that's a very unique integration. If you have to build, then you are looking at very custom build. So that's why the geometrics as well, even for a CRM, where their majority of the integrations are. So you need to evaluate that. And based on these integrations, you can analyze that they have higher penetration in India because their integrations are supported from that perspective. Anthology is going to be very common. Urban, again, very unique. You will struggle to find these integrations with your HubSpot as well as Salesforce. They are not going to be as penetrated in these spaces. I'll keep going here. So now this is the mobile app for field care operations. again, our take on this is going to be, I think you need to figure out your architecture, because yes, these CRMs can accommodate these workflows, but how this is going to marry with the other field service centric systems that you might be using in your architecture, I think that's where you are going to struggle as a customer. So you need to do a little assessment in terms of what is going to be the role of the field service software, unless these guys are trying to become the whole field service category, which is very, 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 very different. Obviously, even Salesforce cannot support some of those workflows as of today. But obviously, these guys have very deep capabilities for the field service. And in our mind and in our experience, this would fall under the whole CX play. So they are not doing anything off here, and they have very unique integrations for this as well. So, for example, let's say if you look at healthcare specific integration, now they have to integrate with EHR. So here we are looking at Dr. Chrono. Okay, you have Athena Health. Athena Health might be known, Dr. Chrono not so much. So again, they have very specific integration from very specific industry as well as geos. So you need to do a little bit of due diligence there. And then if you look at the insurance verification tools in healthcare space, that is going to be very common as well. So you could have at least 1,000 integrations there. So again, that could vary based on your geo. So even though you are able to find a technical platform, but you still have to evaluate these integration, whether they are going to have those for your geo, for your specific industry or not. I don't have anything else here. I'll keep going. This is the insurance page. And insurance is a very different industry. The kind of customer journeys as well as the user persona they are going to have, it's just different. It's a very, 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 very different workflow. You will have nightmares to accommodate this inside Salesforce and HubSpot. Be super careful because this gets very complex. Okay, and again, the CRM systems, they were never designed for these thick workflows. They are going to call, hey, that's ERP, that's not me. But then you have to accommodate if they sort of fall under this whole CX bucket. So here you are going to have personas such as your, what do you have? You have health insurance, you have life insurance, you have motor insurance. And sometimes these CRM vendors are going to argue that, you know what, that is just a category. What's the difference? You can probably have a field there and you can label them as you like, but their journeys are going to be different as well. So that's where things get really difficult. The way they are going to integrate with workflows as well, that's going to be substantially different. And that's where we feel that these are completely different business objects. The call center field agents, they are going to have very different workflow compared to your traditional sales centric CRM system. And then if you look at the workflow, it's just different. It's very different. For example, let's say if you look at bought childcare future plan, pending renewals, post-service feedback, late premium payment. Again, these are just a sample of these workflows, but if you analyze all of the requirements that they are going to have, it gets very complex in these industries. And that's why these industries are very unique from the CRM perspective. Okay, they have things in the banking space as well, and we had seen these layers with Pegasystems, and that's why we believe that Pegasystems was much superior fit for the banking industry. Now ServiceNow may be able to do similar things as well. I don't know if they have KYC workflow, but KYC gets very tricky as well. And the whole CRM workflow is very thick, very unique in these industries. So that's why the likes of Salesforce, they are probably going to struggle in these industries. And again, in retail banking, debt recovery, corporate banking, all of these industries are going to have very specific processes that you will struggle to accommodate in the standard CRM system. I'll keep going here. Real estate is very unique as well, and you have some very real estate centric CRM systems. So you have things such as your channel partners, the kind of connectors you are going to have, the kind of integrations you are going to have, they are going to be very unique. So again, be super careful with the real estate industry as well. And these guys are able to do that. I don't know how many logos they have. They have a lot of logos in the education healthcare space, real estate, I don't know. But this gets very complex as well. And again, in real estate as well, the sub verticals are going to have very different workflows. So even within real estate, you might have challenges because you might have layers of construction that might have a workflow of payment, retainer. It gets very deep. Okay, travel is the industry that we saw with Keep as well. And travel, again, it's a very different beast. Be careful with travel. And that's why these guys may be getting included with Infusionsoft Keep. They had presence in travel. I don't know if we have seen any other CRM systems that specifically targeted travel. I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Pipedrive was not doing anything there. HubSpot definitely. I mean, they are not very industry specific. Yeah. So again, travel to CRM systems that we have seen so far, and seems like they're able to win some logos there. Now, even manufacturing, there are some layers. So if you look at manufacturing, you are probably going to think Sugar CRM. Really strong there. They have very tight alignment with a lot of different ERP systems. The workflows are very different. The CPQs are very different. The estimation flow is very different. But now we are seeing even more interesting scenario. For example, you have the whole, what is that called? The whole MDF process, the channel management process. You are going to have many different dealers, but they are going to have their own influencers as well. So if you are tracking all of those deals, that's where it becomes very complex. So how are you going to attribute the deals to them? But then you might get into the whole SNOP workflows as well. So who's going to manage that workflow? Is it going to be inside CRM, or is it going to be inside some of the supply chain centric software? So that is the decision that you need to make. But it's very interesting that these guys are able to cover a lot of that. A lot of this would fall under the CRM category. So maybe other CRM systems, at least the ones that are targeting manufacturing, we are probably going to see these layers as well in their systems too. Now, this is our problem. Okay, so when we look at fancy marketing hype, it's all great, right? Sounds great. But when you look at the data model, we are not seeing anything especially. Okay, it's a very similar data model, API structure. When you review that, the only difference that we have seen is with entity sharing. And entity sharing is going to be common in scenarios where they are going to share the either the leads or opportunities with their dealers, with any of the business stakeholders, influencers, just to show their workflow, etc. Now that's a very portal centric workflow, and they have these capabilities as part of their platform. So obviously that's a huge plus. But other than that, we didn't notice any business objects that are going to be things like call center. So obviously you would require a lot of customization. I don't know if they are going to have any sort of additions. The additions are not necessarily listed publicly on their site, so we don't know how they are sourcing that, or are they going to customize all of this? And if they are going to do that, that could be a very heavy in general. And that's where I guess my previous comment related to product maturity. So sometimes these products from developing countries, they might claim a lot of capabilities, but they are not necessarily part of the product. So they are customizing whatever they have to customize to win the deal, and they'll do it, I guess. So that's where our concern is, that which direction are they going? Okay, so we have some reviews here, and this is coming from 2024. And in this case, they are saying this is a furniture company, and even furniture companies are going to have very unique processes. But I think for furniture companies, the mainstream CRMs are probably going to be better. I don't know how fit this one is going to be completely honest, for a furniture company. The reason for that is because the furniture companies as well as the mattress companies, they are going to have very thick CPQ workflow. They might have configurator workflow as well. And now that has to be integrated with your ERP system. So depending upon which CPQ you are using, you have CPQ processes or not, whether you care for that workflow as part of your customer experience. If you have that, then you would require much tighter alignment with your ERP. Then you have to go for something like Sugar CRM. And I don't know how integrated they are and whether they target furniture or not. But that's a very interesting play here. Furniture is a very interesting industry. So they are saying we use the lead plus activity API to capture a bunch of lead sources into LeadSquared. We have also integrated, telephony and WhatsApp messaging feature converged with LeadSquared, which allow us to track the calls and messages from within LeadSquared. Again, they are not necessarily speaking industry, even though they have done a little bit of call center integration, which is probably going to be common, at least in India, I guess. I don't know how common this is going to be in North America, probably, or the other developed countries, to have very busy call center in a furniture shop. I don't know. They might not have that. Banks, insurance, I can understand. Here they are saying good automation tool, which I can update lead fields, send WhatsApp messages, send emails, create tasks, wait for events. Again, I don't know how many furniture companies are going to be really big on WhatsApp. India, it's very common because WhatsApp is a main channel. Maybe other companies are going to get there, but as of today, they don't have that. They are talking about Sierra report marketing tool is counterintuitive and unnecessarily complex at times. I don't even know what Sierra report means. Maybe that is their proprietary term. But this is the comment that I was talking about, that when you are going to have very specific reports built for your industry, they get a little difficult, right? So you need to invest in training, change management there. whenever you are dealing with any platform, that is going to have a lot of industry capabilities baked as part of the platform. So that's it for the review right now. So I can take some comment. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I think it has performed really well in India, but the question is, will it be able to accommodate to the market in the US or North America? Like, so, yeah, like most of their educational workflows, I think, were based on, since it also had customers like Byju's, so I think they must have used that for that purpose. So I feel like it's very catered towards Indian market, but I don't know if it can perform well.
Yeah, could not agree more. And I think they are going to be a very strong contender, I would say, in the CRM market, based on their traction and what they are able to win. So we are definitely excited about them, what they are going to do. But again, our perspective is going to be once they have a little bit of global base and slightly refined product strategy, I would say, then we will like them a little bit more. So on that note, that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We're going to come back with another vendor or the solution. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.